Hey, this is Pastor Tom. We're studying Ecclesiastes 6 together this week. There are a lot of perplexing things the preacher Solomon says in this chapter, but we need to first look at the clear statements that will help us understand the direction he is taking us. First, in verses 1 through 6, the preacher twice says God gives something. First, God gives wealth, possessions, and honor so that he lacks nothing that he desires. This man seems to have all the ingredients to a wonderful life. But second, God did not give him the power to enjoy these wonderful ingredients. Instead, someone else enjoys them. So just because God gave the wealth doesn't mean he also gives the ability to enjoy the wealth. The preacher then gives some hyperbolic examples of things that look good, 100 sons and living 2,000 years. But in both cases, the man is not satisfied with life's good things and enjoys no good. Solomon concludes that if God gives the gifts, but not the enjoyment of the gifts, it would be better to never be born. And so the point is that wealth, children, and age itself cannot in themselves satisfy someone. Only God can give that joy. Enjoyment of God's gifts are so important that no amount of wealth, children, or long life can make up for its lack. In verses 7 through 9, the preacher considers the reasons why men cannot find enjoyment and satisfaction in their own ability. The reason is because all the toil of a man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. The word his appetite is literally his soul. So this isn't just talking about physical hunger, but about the deeper hunger of joy, explicitly mentioned in verse 3. His soul is not satisfied with life's good things. The preacher gives two examples of people who cannot overcome this inherent inability to be satisfied. A wise man, or even a poor man, who had somehow figured out how to conduct himself before the living, even though he was at such a disadvantage. The preacher describes this inability to have our soul filled again in verse 9 as the wandering of the appetite. Again, literally, the wandering of the soul. The soul naturally seeks for fulfillment, but cannot find it. Better, he says, is the sight of the eyes. Frequently in this book, the author is looking for good, and in verse 6 he points out the essential purpose to enjoy, literally it's to see, good. Being able to enjoy good in the present is better than any unfulfilled desire. So he's making the point again about how worthless life is without God giving us joy. So if the first 6 verses teach that God doesn't give everyone true enjoyment, then these verses help us see the basic reason why people cannot satisfy themselves. The last 3 verses don't name God explicitly, but the reference to one stronger than he, and who knows, and who can tell must refer to God. Man, on the other hand, is not able to dispute. He does not know what is good for man, and he cannot know what will be after him. So these last verses teach us that people are not able to overcome God's purposes. This brings us back to the preacher's point that God alone has the power to give joy. So here's the question I want you to think about. Why is it so important that we grasp the truth that joy is what makes life worth living? And why does the preacher want to make sure we know that only God can give us this joy? I'm looking forward to learning about this truth with you. God's blessings on your week.